Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to listen. I have a good friend of mine back, Matt Warner, today, and we are going to talk about the ideal team player and how you build a team and those people get to stand out in there. So I will have him go into all the details about it, but I think you'll find this very helpful when you're a small business owner of just looking at all of the people on your team. So thank you so much for coming back for round three of digging into all things teams and just building out people.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm really excited to present or talk about the ideal team player. So, this is another book by Patrick Lencioni, and he basically describes what he would say are the three virtues to an ideal team player. So, he says that the person who's the ideal team player is someone who's humble, hungry, and smart. And when you have all three, you're kind of like the best person to work with. Everyone loves working with you. The problem, which we'll get into more, is if you're missing one of these, or if you manage someone who's missing one of these, it does create problems on the team, in the organization. And so, how do you handle that? What do you do? And what are the signs when someone is really missing one of those? So, that's what we'll
Yeah.
dive into.
Yeah, no, this will be awesome because how many times that happens, everywhere. It's in businesses we work in, it's places we even visit. When you have customer experience, you start to see those differences in how people show up. And
Yeah,
so,
well, and then also there's this interesting dynamic of, if we're thoughtful leaders, we might be in a season where we're a little bit low in one of
mhm,
those. So it's good for us as leaders to be like, yeah, maybe this is a season where I'm not as hungry as I used to be,
mhm.
or I'm not as smart with the people I work with like I used to be. And smart, by the way, is people skills. It's
Yeah.
understanding people. It's not intelligence. So
Right. Yeah, and I think that's important to say because sometimes people equate that with IQ or
yeah,
capabilities, but
yeah.
it's more the EQ side of things.
Mhm.
Yeah. So let's say, give me what is kind of the last time that you were here. We talked more in detail about leadership and ownership, and kind of share how does this framework fit into all of that.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think a good way to understand it is, you, in a perfect world, you're going to have an organization or a team of people that have all three of these virtues, and they don't have a major deficit in any of them. And when you have that, you have a great team, you have a great organization. And because of that, you will then have high levels of trust on the team. You'll be able to do conflict really well. You'll leave meetings with everyone having a clear sense of what they're doing and be committed to it. Accountability won't be so hard or awkward or weird, because you've got people that are humble, they're working hard, they know how to say the right thing, they're good with people. And so it kind of creates like the ideal organization when you have people that are strong in all three. So, the one way to kind of describe it is, you want to be hiring for people that have all three. Obviously, it's hard to tell in an interview if they have all three, because
Yes.
people kind of fake it. But you want to, as best you can, make sure, okay, these are the characteristics of the people I want on my bus, and then I got to get them in the right seat on the bus. But if they don't, if they're lacking in humble, hungry, or smart, ooh, it's going to create issues down the road.
Yeah. And I'm sure you see this in the line of work you do. And when people call you in and, hey, our team is a little disruptive, and you start to diagnose what's going on, and you probably see, probably very easily, those missing characteristics in people. And to your point, what you said just a few minutes ago of, we each can be in different seasons in our life where we had all three of those, but maybe we're going through something and one of those is lacking.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting because I had a conversation a week ago with a friend of mine of, hey, I'm not as hungry for my business as I once was. I started this, I think it was 5 years ago. He started his business, and, it's taken off. He's hit a lot of goals, and he's like, I just don't enjoy it anymore. So there's some of that burnout in it, but it's also, I want to be excited about this again. And my team is kind of having to carry that for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And burnout is normal. we actually did a call
We
not too long ago,
did.
talked about sometimes burnout is because you're spending a lot of your time doing the type of work that doesn't give you energy, joy, and fulfillment. So sometimes the burnout is going to happen because we're just doing parts of the job that don't really energize us, and that's
Mhm.
okay. It's just becoming aware of that and then making necessary changes that alone might solve the burnout issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So give me an example of going, working with a client and you kind of walk in where they're having some of these issues with their team of, we used to be really strong and doing great and now all of a sudden there's been shifts. What's kind of that key thing you see when you walk through the door, your first visit with them?
Yeah. um I think if there's shifts, I think if there's like the culture's changing, it's always good for the leader to think through, how have I allowed this to happen? So if the leader can be vulnerable and realize a lot of times there's a shift in the culture because leaders sometimes are afraid to hold people accountable for certain behaviors. So I think it's always good for the leader to be honest with themselves and say, have I really had the awkward conversation with the people that are shifting the culture a little bit? And most leaders, when they're honest with themselves, would say, no, I probably started to notice that 6 months ago, and
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have the conversation like I should have. Or a year ago, I saw some signs and I kind of chickened out, which I chicken out all the time. It's easy to notice it, but to go,
Yes,
ooh,
you
and
do.
then too
Mm-hmm.
awkward. And, but then every time that's happened, I've always regretted it. So I think it's great for leaders to be aware of that. Um, so yeah, I think that's the first step is
Yeah.
just to be aware of it and to say like, ooh, okay, I can't let that happen anymore. I'm going to have those conversations when I notice it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. They're awkward. They're so many times we put those types of things off because we want to find a better moment to say it. And then
Yes.
the better moment never comes and it never comes and you're 6 months down the road and now the problem's getting
Yeah.
worse.
And this is the part of leadership that's not glamorous. It's not
Yeah.
fun. We often get so kind of enticed by the title or the corner office or the
Mm-hmm.
flash of it, and or yeah, the fancy part of it. But the reality is leadership is a lot of times it's not fun, it's not glamorous, it's exhausting, it's tiring, and it can be awkward. And so
Yeah.
having these kind of conversations about, hey, what you said back there in the meeting, the way you said that, that wasn't okay. And circling back with team members to let them know that that's the part of leadership that we don't enjoy, that no one really enjoys, but it is.
Mm-hmm. Have you seen? This was an interesting question. One of my friends, we were actually talking about on her podcast earlier this week of just how society as a whole has shifted in how we communicate, and we've lost some of those good communication skills because, to one point, we're afraid to make people feel bad, but also just not given those right skills to say, "Hey, you're not showing up like you normally do. I know you to perform better," or whatever that looks like. Has that come up in some of the conversations you've had with leaders where there's been a shift? Either it's the change in generations that are coming in or just society as a whole.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this kind of leans into the virtue that Patrick talks about, and that's being smart. So this is understanding how your words and your actions impact other people. So to be really strong in this virtue means that you read the room well, and you know how to talk to people the right way to get the best out of them. So you're reading the room, you're understanding like group dynamics. You can kind of see what's going on with the team in very subtle ways. And you know what to say and how to say it. And you know when not to say anything at all.
Mm-hmm.
So, and yeah, you can make an argument that maybe that's getting lost a little bit in our culture today. And that's a whole other separate
Oh
conversation.
yeah.
But it's also learning like how to do, like how to talk to people to get the best out of them,
Hmm.
and to do that in a way where accountability is still something that happens on the team. That's a unique skill set. And some people are really good at that. They just kind of know it intuitively. And other people, they need to learn how to do that. Um, so when you lack in that big time, Patrick would say you are called the accidental mess maker. So
Huh.
this is the person who has a good heart. They want to do the right thing. They're humble and they work hard, but they're not aware of how they're creating a mess around them because they say the wrong thing or they do the wrong thing. And so it's like the boss has to keep going around and say, hey guys, just trust me. He has a really good heart. And
Hmm.
okay, you've said that before, but they
Yeah.
keep creating these messes on the team. So that's the accidental mess maker. And out of all the problems, that's probably the best one to deal with because they're humble, they'll take the feedback pretty well.
Yes.
Um, they don't intend to make a mess. That's not their heart, but they're just slow in picking up some of the cues around them.
Mm. Yeah.
The other ones are a little bit trickier. So when someone doesn't work hard, when they're lacking in that hunger, they're called the lovable slacker. And so this is the
I
person
always
that
love his creative names for things. It's great.
the lovable slacker, you want them at the team lunch, you want them, at your table because they're fun, they're
Hmm.
energizing, everybody likes them, they're kind of like team mascot vibes. But if you ask them what the due date was on the upcoming project, they would be kind of be like, wait, what project? They just don't have sort of a lot of that energy that you would hope that they would have to get things done well. And this one gets a little bit harder to work with because it's hard for someone to turn on their hunger. Like if that wasn't established at a younger age, it can be harder for people to turn it on. It's not impossible, but this is something that ideally someone had at a young age and just naturally has it. But again, it's not the hardest one. The one that's the trickiest is when someone appears to be like humble because they're smart, but they
Yeah.
actually lack in humility and they have hunger. So they'll work hard,
Mhm.
but if they're not truly humble, Patrick calls them the skillful politician. And this is the trickiest one because they do have some people skills. So
Hmm.
they can almost appear to be humble, but actually not be. And so this is the one Patrick would say can create the most um, friction on a team, can create the most issues. And this is the person that sometimes has a harder time admitting you're right. That,
Yeah.
that I lacked in humility there. I shouldn't have handled it that way. That was not the right idea. Because they're lacking in humble, it's harder for them sometimes to see their deficiency in this area.
Yeah. And I've seen that on clients I've worked with where that's become a culture in the organization too. And it's really interesting, especially when you have a larger company that has multiple departments and you bring them all into one room and there's this strife between them because it's well our team's smarter than your team, this and this, and it's like it's a weird, like nobody's humble. It's very much prideful of we don't do anything right. Our team does it way better than what you have, and it kind of gets manipulative in a lot of ways of how things would show up with one particular client I did have work
Yeah.
with.
Skillful politicians can go unnoticed and like not called out for long periods of time, especially if they're high performers and they're getting
Mhm.
results. Because everyone's celebrating their victories and their wins, and that gets a lot of the attention. But there's a lot of like, there's a wake of destruction behind those people. A lot of times they can steamroll over people in the organization as they get the results. And so it does take leadership oftentimes to call it out and say, hey, you're doing great, you're getting results, but it's how you do the work with the people on your team that I'm concerned about. So we need to have a conversation about that
Yeah.
because a lot of times they can be kind of cruel and mean to others. But if the leadership just wants to celebrate the victories, then
They're doing great.
that's fine. But people will probably avoid working with those people and will sometimes leave because
Hmm.
like I'm tired of being treated that way.
Yeah.
So
And I think I worked at a place like that for my short corporate route of life that I took a 3 year detour, I feel like. But it was a lot of what you just said, working there, and how many people would just leave because of that. And they had an extremely high turnover, and they always were, well, we don't quite understand why. Even when they would ask for feedback, why is everybody wanting to leave? And it was pretty much we all left for that same reason.
Yeah, this will test leadership really, really well. Is you might have a high performer, they're the skillful politician, they're crushing it, but nobody's enjoying working with them.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a wake of negativity that they leave behind them. And so, can the leadership see that, call it out, and not demonize the person, but let them know, hey, we love the results you're getting, but how you treat the people you work with to us is just as important as the results that you're getting. That'll be challenging sometimes for leadership to do that, because we can so over celebrate their results that they're getting, that they're crushing their numbers, that we make that the top priority. But then the culture is going to suffer because of that. So can the leadership step up and handle that moment well? That'll be a real test oftentimes for leaders.
Yeah. So when you're working with small businesses, what usually is, they that first phone call that they call you about, what does that look like for them? Is something already broken once they reach out to you, or is it they're sensing something is not quite aligned within their team and they need help?
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of times it's easy for leaders to maybe pick out one or two behaviors in a team or in an employee and kind of make it, but
Mm-hmm.
again, the best leaders are able to reflect and go, how have I allowed that to go on? And what is the new thing that I need to start doing that's going to change this culture? Because it's very easy and simple to make it about them. Man, if they could just work harder, if they could just be better with other people, gosh, like this would be so easy now. But a lot of times it's, well, we allowed it to get to that point. So do
Yeah.
you have the humility and the self-awareness to acknowledge, I've contributed to this and I have to figure out what in my leadership is going to change so it doesn't happen anymore. And then the other thing too that often can happen is, okay, let's say we got an individual or a team that's lacking in one of these virtues. What is my game plan now to address that moving forward? So
Mm-hmm.
let's say you're in a staff meeting and someone who lacks in smart, like they're just not aware of how they're coming across in meetings. Let's say you're going around and you're celebrating wins, and the person who's really lacking in that has the opportunity to celebrate, hey, that project went really well. I just want to take a moment and highlight the other people here who really contributed towards it. They
Mm-hmm.
don't do that, right? They just make it
Oh,
about them. The
yeah.
leader has to acknowledge in that moment, hey, is there anyone else that you want to, highlight who helped you with that project? And if that's too awkward to call it out in the moment, then you need to circle back with that person right after the meeting and say, hey, one of the things we've been talking about is, you figuring out how to work better with your team. And in that meeting, that was the best time to highlight the other people that helped you on this project. And you didn't take advantage of that. So can I recommend that you go talk to them right now and just say, hey, I'm so sorry I missed that opportunity. I should
Yeah.
have highlighted you. Go do that right now. So that's that. The best leaders, like you said earlier, they don't wait for the perfect moment. They
Mm-mm.
just they address it right after the meeting, or they call it out right in the moment. And they don't wait later in the week to bring it up. As soon as the meeting's over, they have that conversation.
Yeah. And that goes so far. I hate because to your point, I can be let's just today doesn't seem like a good day. I should wait till tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes, well, it's just not really the best. And it's that overthinking cycle. And yeah. And if you can say it right then, like what a great reward for somebody if they were forgotten to be spoken about, but also being humble enough to go say something as well.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of times these virtues, if someone's really lacking in them, they don't change immediately. They take reminders. And so
Mm-hmm.
this is the hard part about being a leader is you signed up to be the reminder for people on your team. And if you have any people pleasing tendencies, which I do, then that will irk you a lot because you're like, ooh, I don't want to be annoying. I just said something to them last week. Well, guess what? That's what being a
You get
leader
to do it
is.
again.
Being a leader means you are going to have lots of awkward conversations.
Yeah.
And so this is the non-glamorous side of leadership. Okay, I got that person again who really lacks in hunger, and it showed up again. They did not get those emails done in time. They did not, whatever it may be. I have to talk to them about that. Hey, I need you to respond to emails quicker. That one took 4 days to get back to the customer, and we can't work like that. We've got to be quicker.
Hmm.
And you have to bring it up over and over and over again. And the benefit of bringing it up over and over and over again is eventually they either get it or they self-select out. They just
Yeah.
realize, oh, this isn't a good place for me. I can't rise to the occasion here. I don't have what it takes, or yeah, they just find something else. So that's the benefit, is it changes the culture, or they just self-select and realize this isn't a good place for me.
Hmm. Do you ever walk in when you're working with those founders and they kind of address to you, oh, we think the problem is, Joey over here. And you're like, oh, sure, we'll evaluate that. But really, it's this person over here, or it's the actual founder that is causing some of that, unevenness or riff within the organization. But sometimes they're blind to how they show up, or it's easier to always point fingers at anybody but yourself.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that can definitely happen where uh, the default mode is to make it about the other person.
Hmm.
That's the human tendency. It's like, oh, they're the problem. So yes, that can certainly happen. And yeah, to your point, sometimes the issue is more than just that person. It's the leader, or it's the team dynamics, or it's hard for the team to step up and say, you know what, we're going to hold each other accountable. We're not just going to make it always about the leader. The leader doesn't have to have all the awkward conversations. We're going to start doing that as a team, because the energy and the time that the leader has to spend to have all those conversations is a lot. So
Yeah.
best teams don't make it about the leader having to do all those conversations. They just say as a team, hey, we are going to rise to the occasion. When we start to see things in each other, we're going to do those conversations. Now, I always tell teams, do not do that if you don't have a high level of trust. If
Hmm.
you haven't shown over and over again that you care, that you're willing to be vulnerable, that you're willing to admit when you made a mistake or when you need help. If you don't have that in your team or on your culture, then do not dive headfirst in this accountability thing, because it will be a complete mess. It'll be really bad. So it starts with trust. You gotta be vulnerable with each other. Patrick calls this vulnerability based trust. Can we say what needs to be said in the moment? The hard thing, the scary thing, the risky thing. Can we go there with each other? So you have that when you hear things like, I messed up, I made a mistake, I need help. Hey, you're better at that than me. Can you show me how you do that? When you hear things like that, then you have got vulnerability based trust. And this is usually the foundation to high performing teams, and the best cultures is when the team can talk like that with each other.
Yeah. And I think that's the nice part about his methodology and how you're able to weave that into everything that you do, because essentially building an ideal team comes from all of the other workings of the things that he's put together. Because, was it when we talked about when you're in your zone of genius, how is your team showing up? And then building that trust and the accountability and having a team that you actually want to work with and they have your back, versus going in somewhere thinking, oh, is this you're going to be nice to me in the boardroom and stab me on the way out the door kind of culture. And so I think it's really neat to be able to see, yeah, we can take little bits and pieces of, kind of that, but it's actually built out into something so much bigger to make a very full leadership team.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, if you don't have the humble, hungry, smart, like
Mhm.
you want everyone on your executive team, your leadership team, or in your company, you want everyone to have that, because when they do, the chances of you issues are very lower. So you want to be looking for those. You want to model that. You want to create that culture. You want to reinforce that culture. You want to reward people that model those three virtues, because it really does kind of set the right atmosphere for the team.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're not going to have issues probably with, like I said earlier, trust, conflict, commitment, accountability, and results, if people are
Right.
really good at just being humble, working hard, and learning how to work with people the right way, being smart.
Mm-hmm. So when you go in and I would say, I know you do a lot of presentations around all of this too. What are usually the main things that people in the room, they raise their hand and they're, yes, I identify with exactly what you're saying about XYZ. Is there certain characteristics or certain patterns of things that pop up right away with people?
Uh, yeah. I think everyone has worked with someone who can feel like the accidental mess maker, or the lovable slacker, or the skillful politician. Um, and usually, when I am presenting to a group or a team, when I talk about how it's easy to label people, but have you, the leader, had more of those intentional conversations around those dynamics?
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, leaders will admit, when they're honest, I have not leaned into those conversations like I should. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Nobody wakes up in the morning and goes, I am so looking forward to having all the awkward conversations with people in my team.
Right.
Very few people are wired that way. So there's a lot of grace if the leader can say, yeah, I haven't really leaned in and had those conversations. That's normal. But
Mm-hmm.
as leaders become aware, I'm avoiding it. I'm
Yeah.
avoiding it. And I did really good last quarter or last year with those conversations, but I've kind of started chicken out, and I got to lean in and do it again. The best leaders say, yep, I'm going to do that, because they know how much it matters.
Oh yeah. And it's hard, and if you're not completely wired that way day one, you have to learn how to do it. And I think as human nature too, most of us, we don't go in wanting to correct people and wanting to be mean, some, or not mean, but like sometimes it's forceful what has to come out to be able to make a point. And I don't think that's, at least it's not made inside of me. I don't get riled up being like, all right, we're going to go put this person in their place. That's not fun. And I know some people, they're very unhealthy and they get joy out of doing that for some reason. But
Right.
um, yeah, there's a lot to learn as a leader, and I don't think you don't really learn that in school. You learn it some in sports if you're a team captain or leading different clubs or whatnot. But
Yeah.
I think
Well,
it's interesting.
yeah, and this is where the leader, if you as the leader can be vulnerable yourself, when you can tell your team, "Hey guys, I didn't do that well. I'm sorry." Or when you can do that with the individuals on your team, "Hey,
Hmm.
I should have done this better with you," or I didn't really step up like I needed to help you, blah blah blah, whatever it is. When the leader can do it, it establishes on the team, oh, if he can be vulnerable, or if she can be vulnerable with me, then I need to be vulnerable with them. So the leader has to lead the way with this.
Yeah.
The principle for the leader is the leader should go first and deepest when it comes to vulnerability. If the leader can do that, it establishes for everyone else, this is a safe place. Then I can be vulnerable too. I can admit when I made a mistake. I can,
Hmm.
like, when I wasn't bringing my A game, or yeah, you're right, I should have done that better. The leader has to establish it. If the leader won't do it, it'll create more issues down the road. And that's hard for leaders sometimes, is to realize, oh, if I want a more vulnerable culture, if I want a culture that takes feedback better, then I have to be the kind of person where I can admit when I've got a blind spot, or I didn't see that well, or you're right, that wasn't a good hire, and I really pushed for that person and it wasn't the right person. The leader has to be willing to go there themselves.
Hmm. And I've seen that with some companies as well, as when they have a change of guard where one leader's out and now they have a completely new leader in. And maybe the one that was there was kind of unhealthy. And this new one coming in is bringing all of this change where we want to be transparent, we want to have accountability, all of those things. And it's like almost like a change shift that people are oh, wait a second, what are we doing? This feels so uncomfortable, but good at the same time.
Yeah. 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 Yep. Yeah. It is uncomfortable. Nobody like wants to like admit, okay, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have done it well. But when you let your pride get in the way, it will create more issues for the team later. So the leader should just lean into that. Now, that doesn't mean every day you need to admit when you made a mistake. That's not what we're
Right.
talking about.
No.
But there are definitely moments when, as the leader, you probably do need to say something in the moment.
Hmm.
And and your team will appreciate that about you when you can admit when you made a mistake or you didn't do it well. So sometimes as leaders we got to get over ourselves and we just have to like lean into that humility of, hey, I'm gonna get better at this, and
Hmm.
always respect the leader when they can do that,
Yeah.
because we've
So,
worked for leaders who never could do it,
right.
and we always remember them like, oh man, they were so full of themselves or whatever
Hmm.
it may have been, and we remember those leaders in a negative way. So
Oh, yeah.
when the leader can say, I'm not going to do that, everyone appreciates it about them.
They really do. And the ones that do it well too, they're more, I always call them kind of the quiet leaders because they're not looking for all the accolades that come along with it. They're just there kind of, pushing and guiding, like you're steering a ship a little bit. Oh, we're drifting a little bit this way. Let's recalculate. And yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So I think what would be helpful to talk about is, let's say you're leading a team or an organization, or you have your own business, and you've got someone who's really lacking in, let's say, hunger. So
Hmm.
that's going to change is you probably have to get very clear about deadlines and what exactly you're looking for. When they lack in their own drive, when they lack in their own wanting to get it done and putting in the extra time and the extra effort, you just got to be very clear about, here's what we're expecting. And it doesn't mean you have one hard conversation. It means every time you notice that they're lacking in hunger, you've got to bring it up over,
Hmm.
over, and over again. And so, one thing I've seen that helps a lot of times is you got to have clear goals. And so, make your meetings with that person. If you do meet with them regularly, make the meeting about a quick update on how they're doing with the goals, so that if you meet with them every week or every other week, you get multiple opportunities in a month to have conversations about, hey, that's what I mean about getting it done quicker or working more efficiently. Like, don't let the whole quarter go by or the whole year go by and then you have to have the hard conversation. Make
Yeah.
every meeting you have about an update on how they're doing on their goals. That is a very helpful way to address the person who's lacking in the hunger.
Hmm.
Yeah.
No, that totally makes sense. So if a founder has been listening and they're nodding along, being like, "Oh, yeah, my business, I can see a lot of these things in it, and it's probably leaning a certain direction." Like, what advice would you kind of give them? Some of it is have those meetings, like you
Yeah.
just mentioned, and with accountability.
Yeah, I think one thing that can always help the leader to do is to just start making this a part of their culture and conversation. So a great exercise, a great discussion you could do is you could talk to your team about, hey, here are the three virtues in my ideal team player, and let's just talk through as a team right now during this season, which is the one that you think is the one you're the weakest at. And the leader should go first. So the leader says, hey, during the season, I think I'm maybe, like you mentioned, a friend you talked to, I think I'm not as hungry as I used to be. Well, that already takes a lot of vulnerability to admit that you as the leader, you're maybe not as hungry, which would be great for your team maybe to hear from
Yeah.
you, right? And again, when you do this conversation, do it with the caveat of during this season. You're not admitting I have not been hungry my whole career. Like,
Hmm.
who wants to admit that, right? Nobody's going to want to say that.
No.
So just during the season, hey, I think I'm lacking in smart, or I could probably improve on that, or um, yeah, it's humility for me, whatever it is, and then say why, and have your team do that conversation. Okay,
Hmm.
and that right there already takes vulnerability for everyone to admit it. And if you really want to take this to the next level, make this same conversation about everyone shares, they go around, and then have everyone share too what it is that they are going to commit to working on so they get better at that. And then this is the goal too. How can this team help you improve on that? If you do that exercise, it will be very helpful for you as a leader to hear what everyone says they want to work on, and for them to share, here's how you guys can help me with that. It's gold, because you might have someone on your team who says, oh, I need to work on this. And you're like, nope, that's not the biggest issue. It's this. And you
You're
just
like,
say,
oh.
conversation to have with them, circle back and say, hey, I noticed you said this, but honestly, I think you said A, but I think it's B. So that's a great conversation to have. It could be awkward for some teams to have this conversation, but it's a great one to start incorporating into the team. And because it also gives you great opportunities to have more follow-up conversations with people.
Yeah.
Because when they've said, hey, here's what I want to work on, and here's how you guys can help me, well, now you've got an on-ramp to have that conversation with them down the road.
Yeah, I like that. And especially the blind spots. Sometimes we don't see we don't see where those are, and somebody's got to point it out because we might think it's something else.
Yeah. Yeah. And for everyone to go around and say, I want to work on, let's say, being hungry, or I want to work on making sure I'm treating people better, in the office, or I want to work on, whatever it may be. For them to articulate it is going to take them being vulnerable. And then for them to say, here's how you guys can help me. Well, now you basically are creating more of an accountability culture in your organization, which the best organizations, they just do this naturally.
Yeah.
Lean into accountability. They don't shy away from it. And so this is a great conversation, a great discussion to make the right steps in that direction.
And what does a business look like on the other side? So they've gone through all of this work, and now how have they improved operationally and culturally, financially, like all of the things that actually come in to show that change?
Yeah. That, I think if a leader and a team can say, hey, these are the virtues we want to get really good at, it's going to impact all parts of the organization. So I can't measure it exactly. I can't give you a number, but I've never talked to a leader who has spent time saying, hey, I'm going to make sure this is part of my culture. I've never talked to a leader who later said, I felt like you overpromised on all that. I felt like you really talked a big game and it didn't make that big a difference. That has never happened. It's been the opposite. Oh my gosh, man, it was hard. It was awkward. We had to let some people go. But this is, everyone is enjoying working here so much more as a result of this. I've never had a leader say, yeah, you made that way too big a deal. It didn't make that much of an impact. That's never happened.
Yeah. And if it did at any given time, you're like, there's a whole nother set of problems then that somebody's not identifying. Yeah.
The only way that could come out is if the culture is, hey, we don't really care about how people get treated here. Yep. We're just about the results. We're just about the bottom line. Well, if that is the true culture of the organization, then yes, they could maybe say, yeah, I think you overpromised this, because they already had all the focus on the numbers or on the bottom line. And then, then that person might say, yeah, you overpromised. But most people, if they make it all about the numbers and the culture is not important, then what will end up happening at the end of the day is they'll often lose their top performers.
Yep.
So that's when they start to go, okay, maybe they were right. Maybe they did. Maybe they were onto something, and we downplayed.
Gonna miss that. Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't think it was a big deal, but now we're seeing it because all of our top people have left.
So if a founder was, hearing this conversation, what would you say is the number one thing they should start to do this week?
Well, I think having that conversation, that exercise would be a great first step for them to take. I think getting the book, The Ideal Team Player by Patrick Lencioni.
It's a good read.
great book, and it's very easy to read. Um, and I think the leader also just self-reflecting. Hey, which is my bottom one right now? Which is the one that I'm not maybe as strong at right now? And what would that look like for me to get better at that? And if the leader can start to think through that, then thinking about that for their culture and the people in their organization will be a little bit easier when they start to think through what would that look like for me to get better
Mhm.
this week in maybe being hungry or smart or being humble, like that alone will start to be helpful.
Yeah, and it's just sometimes those initial, like you said, just sitting with it and thinking through it, reflecting on what are those things and coming up with a plan. I think what I've seen a lot with leaders is they get so focused, and even myself, you get so focused going down a certain direction and you forget about everything else out there, and you got to stop and actually, all right, where are we, and do that check in with yourself on where am I with my team, how am I leading, and
Yeah.
all of that.
Most organizations overemphasize the smart side, the numbers side, the results side, and they downplay the healthy side of the organization.
Mhm.
And and that's okay, because that's kind of the default. Hey, we gotta work hard. We gotta, the business has to survive. We gotta make money. So it's natural to overly focus on the smart side.
Yeah.
But when you focus on the healthy side, it will actually make you smarter over time. And so don't neglect this. Don't think it's not a big deal. It is a big deal. You want to have a culture where people are hungry, humble, and smart.
Yeah.
Don't downplay that. Invest in it. Make it a priority. You'll never regret it as a leader.
No, it's perfect. So thank you so much for being on here. I love the conversation, and I hope everybody got a lot out of this. If people want to get in contact with you, what is the best way to find you?
Yeah, they could email me. My email is matt.warner@leadeffect.org, or you can just go to the website, leadeffect.org. Yeah, that'd be the easiest way.
Awesome. Well, thanks again so much for being on here. I really appreciate it.